Jake Morrison stared at the holographic display showing his account balance. 1 churro universal credits. One measly credit stood between him and sleeping in a cargo bay with the recycled air and the constant hum of life support systems that never quite managed to warm the metal corridors of Nexus Station. His cargo hauler, the Stardrift, sat in Docking Bay 7 with a fried hyperdrive that would cost more credits than he'd see in 6 months. The repair estimate had been delivered with the kind of mechanical sympathy that suggested the tech knew Jake was screwed. 3 days he'd been stranded on this outer rim station, watching his credits drain away on overpriced station food and docking fees. The Andromeda trade route was supposed to be his ticket to easy money. Rare minerals from the outer colonies, desperate customers, premium shipping rates. Instead, it had become his financial graveyard. One bad navigation jump, one critical system failure, and his dreams of independence were reduced to pocket change. Jake walked through the station's lower levels, where the neon signs buzzed with electrical problems and the air recyclers wheezed like dying animals. This was where desperate people came for desperate solutions. Loan sharks, black market dealers, and establishments that didn't ask too many questions about their clientele. That's when he saw it. A flickering pink sign that read, Cosmic Haven Lodge, rooms from 1 credit, all species welcome, human currency. Accepted. The sign was missing half its letters and the entrance looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the station was built. But it was within his budget. Jake pushed through the grimy glass doors into a lobby that somehow managed to be both garish and depressing. The walls were covered in holographic advertisements for services he didn't want to think about, and the air smelled like synthetic flowers trying to cover something much worse. Behind the desk sat a blob-like alien with too many eyes and not enough customer service training. 1 night, 1 credit, it gurgled in heavily accented standard. Room 47, shared facilities, no refunds. Shared facilities? Jake asked. But the alien had already slid him a keycard and turned its attention to something more interesting. The elevator wheezed its way to the 4th floor, and Jake found himself in a corridor that looked like it had been decorated by someone with aggressive color blindness. Room 47 was at the end, next to a vending machine that claimed to sell authentic Earth food, but looked suspiciously like it hadn't been restocked since Earth was still called Terra. Jake slid the keycard and pushed open the door, expecting to find a coffin-sized space with a cot and hopefully working plumbing. Instead, he found himself in a surprisingly spacious room with soft lighting, comfortable-looking furniture, and 2 alien women who turned to look at him with expressions of delighted surprise. The taller one had luminescent blue skin that seemed to glow softly in the dim light, with silver hair that moved like liquid mercury around her shoulders. She wore what looked like a flowing dress made of starlight. The shorter one had purple-hued skin with intricate golden patterns that seemed to shift and dance across her arms and face, and her eyes were the color of molten gold. "Oh, wonderful," said the blue-skinned woman, clapping her hands together. "You must be our 3rd roommate. I'm Kira, and this beautiful soul is Vex." "Roommate?" Jake managed, still standing in the doorway with his mouth slightly open. Vex smiled, and Jake felt an unexpected warmth spread through his chest. "You seem confused. Did the desk clerk not explain? This is a harmony sharing room. It's quite common in this sector for travelers to share rest spaces, much more economical and far less lonely." "I'm sorry," Jake said, still trying to process the situation. "I think there's been some mistake. I just paid for a room and I wasn't expecting, I don't want to intrude on whatever you 2 have going on here." Kira laughed, a sound like silver bells in a gentle breeze. "Going on? Oh, we just met an hour ago. Vex is from the Empathy system and I'm from Zilani. We're both traveling the trade routes." She gestured to the space around them. "This room is designed for 3 occupants. See? 3 sleeping alcoves, 3 personal storage units, 3 relaxation pods." Jake looked around and realized she was right. The room was clearly designed for multiple occupants with distinct areas that could provide privacy while encouraging social interaction. It was actually quite clever, assuming you were the type of person who wanted to share space with strangers. "I understand if this is unusual for your species," Vex said gently, and Jake noticed that when she spoke, he felt oddly calm. Humans often prefer isolation, don't they? But we've both been curious about Earth culture. If you're willing to stay, we'd love to learn about your world. Jake hesitated. Every instinct told him this was too good to be true, that he was walking into some kind of trap or misunderstanding that would end badly. But he looked at their faces, genuinely friendly, openly curious, with no hint of deception, and at the comfortable room that was far better than anything he could have hoped for with one credit. "Well," he said, stepping inside and letting the door close behind him, "I guess I'm your roommate for the night." As the door sealed with a soft hiss, Jake Morrison had no idea that this single credit would buy him the most important night of his life. Jake set his worn duffel bag down carefully, still trying to process his situation. The room's soft lighting adjusted automatically to a warmer tone, and he noticed subtle details he'd missed before. The walls seemed to pulse gently with bioluminescent patterns, and the air carried a faint scent of something like jasmine mixed with ozone. "So," he said, settling into what appeared to be a chair that molded itself to his body, "harmony sharing, is that like a cultural thing?" Vex nodded, settling gracefully onto a cushioned platform that began to glow softly beneath her. "On empathy. We believe isolation breeds suffering. When travelers meet, we share space, stories, emotions. It creates understanding between species." She tilted her head, studying him with those golden eyes. "I can sense you're carrying a great deal of stress. How long since you've truly relaxed?" Jake laughed, but it came out more bitter than he intended. "Relaxed? I'm not sure I remember what that feels like. It's been months of one disaster after another." Kira moved to a sleek panel on the wall, her fingers dancing over holographic controls. "Perhaps we can help with that. My people have developed some fascinating techniques for mental restoration." The room's lighting shifted again, and suddenly the ceiling became transparent, revealing a breathtaking view of the nebula beyond the station. "Better. Incredible," Jake breathed, leaning back to take in the swirling colors of cosmic dust and starlight. "How is this possible?" "Holographic projection combined with real-time stellar imaging," Kira explained, clearly pleased with his reaction. "I'm a xenobiologist by training, but I've always been fascinated by how different species experience beauty. What does this make you feel?" Jake considered the question seriously. "Wonder, I guess, and smallness, but not in a bad way. Like my problems are just tiny specks in something much larger and more beautiful." Vex smiled, and Jake felt that strange warmth in his chest again, stronger this time. "That's exactly what we hoped you'd feel. I'm an empathic healer. I can sense and sometimes share emotions. Would you mind if I—" She gestured vaguely. "Share emotions? What does that mean exactly?" "I can help release the tension you're carrying. Let you experience calm the way my people do. But only with permission. Consent is sacred among empaths." Jake looked between them, Kira watching the stars with childlike wonder, Vex radiating a gentleness that made him want to trust her completely. "Okay, but I should warn you, I'm probably carrying more stress than you're used to." Vex laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "I've worked with Rigelian warriors after battle meditation. I think I can handle one human cargo hauler." She moved closer, close enough that Jake could see the intricate golden patterns on her skin shifting like living tattoos. "May I touch your hand?" When their skin made contact, Jake felt a wave of peace. Not the numbing kind he'd tried to find in cheap alcohol or overwork, but genuine calm, like sinking into warm water after a long day. His shoulders, which had been locked with tension for months, finally relaxed. "Oh," Vex said softly, her eyes widening. "You've been alone for so long." "Occupational hazard," Jake murmured, but he didn't pull his hand away. "Cargo hauling is a solitary business. Loneliness isn't just about being alone," Kira said, turning from the stellar display. "It's about not being understood. Tell us about your world, Jake. What do you miss most about Earth?" As the artificial night deepened around them, Jake found himself talking about things he hadn't shared with anyone in years. The smell of rain on summer pavement, the way morning coffee tasted in a real ceramic mug instead of recycled plasteel. The sound of his sister's laugh before the accident that had sent him fleeing to the stars. Vex's touch helped him share these memories without the usual pain, while Kira listened with the focused attention of someone genuinely fascinated by every detail. When he mentioned pizza, both aliens leaned forward with intense curiosity. "It's bread with sauce and cheese baked in an oven," he explained, laughing at their expressions. "Sometimes with toppings, meat, vegetables, whatever you like." The concept of combining multiple food sources into a single dish for pleasure, rather than pure nutrition, Kira mused. Fascinating. Is this representative of human culture's approach to necessity versus enjoyment? I guess. We like to make even basic things more interesting, more human. They spent hours like that, sharing stories and questions, playing games that Kira projected from her personal datapad, complex puzzles that required them to work together, matching memory sequences that somehow became more about learning each other's thinking patterns than winning. As the station's night cycle deepened, Vex showed them how her people rested, creating what she called dream bubbles, anti-gravity fields that cradled the body while allowing the mind to drift. Jake found himself floating gently, weightless, watching Kira demonstrate how Zilani meditation involved projecting memories onto surfaces. "This is from my home," she said, and suddenly the wall showed a crystalline city beneath twin purple suns. "And this is my favorite memory of childhood." The scene shifted to a young Kira dancing with other blue-skinned children in a garden of impossible flowers that sang in harmonious tones. "Beautiful," Jake said, and meant it. "I wish I had memories like that to share." "You do," Vex said softly, still connected to his emotions through her touch. "You're just afraid they'll hurt to remember." She was right, of course. Jake had spent so long running from his past that he'd forgotten there had been good times too. Slowly, tentatively, he began to share. His first successful cargo run, the night he'd saved enough money to buy his own ship, the way the stars had looked from his childhood bedroom window. By the time the station's artificial dawn began to lighten the corridors outside, none of them had slept. But Jake felt more rested than he had in months. More importantly, he felt something he'd almost forgotten was possible: connection. Not just attraction, though he'd be lying if he said he wasn't drawn to both women, but genuine understanding. "Thank you," he said as they prepared for the day. "Both of you. I came here expecting just a place to sleep, but you've given me something much more valuable." Kira smiled, that starlight dress somehow looking fresh despite the long night. "The night isn't over yet, Jake Morrison. In my experience, the most interesting discoveries happen when you least expect them." The station's morning cycle brought artificial sunlight streaming through the room's adaptive windows, but none of them seemed ready to face the day. Jake had expected awkwardness after such an intimate night of emotional sharing, but instead, he felt a comfortable familiarity, as if he'd known Kira and Vex for years rather than hours. "I have a confession," Kira said, stretching gracefully in the morning light. "I've been studying human culture for months, preparing for a research expedition to Earth, but academic knowledge is nothing compared to actually meeting a human." "Research expedition?" Jake asked, intrigued. "My dissertation is on interspecies emotional compatibility, the theory that despite our biological differences, sentient beings share fundamental emotional experiences." She gestured to encompass the three of them. "Last night was more valuable data than months of literature review." Vex laughed, the sound now familiar and warming. "Leave it to a scientist to turn a beautiful connection into a research opportunity." "It doesn't diminish anything," Kira protested, but she was smiling. "If anything, it makes it more wonderful. We've just proven that understanding transcends species barriers." Jake found himself studying both women in the soft morning light. Kira's luminescent skin seemed to pulse gently with her heartbeat, while Vex's golden patterns had shifted to warmer hues, like sunrise on metal. Both were beautiful, but in completely different ways, and he was surprised to find himself attracted to both without feeling conflicted about it. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Is it normal for your species to Form connections this quickly? You mean romantic connections? Vex asked, her empathic abilities clearly picking up on his underlying thoughts. Among my people, emotional bonds often form rapidly when there's true compatibility. We don't see the point in pretending not to feel what we feel. And Zelani culture celebrates all forms of connection, Kira added. Intellectual, emotional, physical? We don't compartmentalize the way some species do. Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks. I wasn't sure if I was misreading the situation. Human dating customs are complicated. You're not misreading anything, Vex said gently, moving closer to him. I can sense attraction, remember? From all three of us. The admission hung in the air between them, not uncomfortable, but charged with possibility. Jake had always been cautious about relationships burned too many times by people who wanted something from him, rather than wanting him. But there was something different about this situation, something that felt genuine and safe. Maybe we should find some food, Kira suggested, though her tone suggested food wasn't really what she was thinking about. I'd love to try creating that pizza you described. They made their way to the room's small but well-equipped food preparation area, and Jake found himself laughing as he tried to explain the concept of bread dough to two aliens who had never encountered anything like flour. Kira approached it like a scientific experiment, taking notes on her data pad, while Vex used her empathic abilities to sense the emotional satisfaction he associated with the process. Food isn't just nutrition for humans, Jake explained as they worked. It's comfort, memory, connection. Pizza reminds me of being young and hopeful. Show us, Vex said, placing her hand over his as he kneaded the synthetic dough substitute they'd managed to create. Let me feel what you feel when you make this. The sensation was indescribable, Jake's memories and emotions flowing through Vex's empathic connection, while she shared the experience with Kira through their own bond. For a moment, all three of them were connected, experiencing Jake's childhood, wonder at watching his mother cook, his teenage excitement at his first job in a pizzeria, his adult longing for simpler times. Oh, Kira breathed, her scientific composure cracking. I understand now. It's not about the food at all. It's about love, Vex added softly. Love made tangible. They ate their improvised fusion meal, part earth pizza, part Zelani grain cakes, part empathy fruit that tasted like liquid starlight, while sharing stories about their worlds, their dreams, their fears. Jake learned that Kira had left her home planet to escape the pressure of an arranged academic partnership, while Vex had been exiled from her world for refusing to use her empathic abilities as a weapon. We're all running from something, Jake realized. Or running toward something, Kira corrected. Perhaps we just haven't known what it was until now. As the day progressed, their connection deepened beyond mere attraction. Jake found himself fascinated by Kira's brilliant mind, the way she could analyze complex problems from angles he'd never considered, and Vex's gentle strength, her ability to ease pain and share joy, made him feel safe in a way he'd never experienced. When afternoon came, they found themselves back in the comfortable seating area, watching the nebula turn from gold to deep purple as the station rotated. Vex was resting against Jake's shoulder, her empathic connection creating a gentle feedback loop of contentment, while Kira sat close enough that her luminescent skin cast soft patterns on the wall. I have another confession, Jake said quietly. I'm attracted to both of you and I don't know what to do about that. Why do you need to do anything about it? Kira asked, genuinely curious. Are human emotional experiences so limited that you can only care for one person at a time? It's not that simple. Human culture has rules about these things. Vex lifted her head to look at him. But you're not on Earth now and we're not human. Why should Earth's rules apply to this situation? It was such a simple question, but it struck Jake like a revelation. Why should they apply? He was millions of light years from home with two incredible beings who seemed to care about him, and he was worried about customs that had never made much sense to him anyway. You're right, he said, and felt something tight in his chest finally. Loosen. You're absolutely right. As the station's evening cycle began, Jake Morrison found himself in the unprecedented position of not knowing what came next, and for the first time in years, being perfectly content with that uncertainty. The evening brought a different energy to their shared space. The casual intimacy of the day had evolved into something deeper, more charged with possibility. Jake could feel it in the way Kira's fingers lingered when she handed him things, in the way Vex's empathic connection had grown stronger and more constant. "I need to tell you both something," Kira said as they settled into the conversation area. Her luminescent skin was glowing brighter than usual, creating dancing patterns on the walls. "On Zilani, we have a concept called tri-bonding, when three compatible souls form a complete emotional and romantic unit. And among the empathy," Vex added, her golden patterns shifting to deeper hues, "we believe that the heart has infinite capacity for love. Restricting ourselves to one connection seems—" She paused, searching for the word. "Wasteful." Jake felt his pulse quicken. "Are you saying that what I'm feeling, what we're all feeling, is normal for your species?" "More than normal," Kira said, moving closer to him. "It's celebrated. When three beings find perfect compatibility, it's considered a gift from the cosmos." Vex placed her hand on Jake's arm, and he felt the familiar warmth of her empathic touch, but stronger now, more intimate. "I can sense your desire, Jake, for both of us. And through our connection, I can feel Kira's as well. We're already bonded in every way, except the physical." Jake looked between them, these two extraordinary beings who had somehow wandered into his life at its lowest point. "I've never experienced anything like this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do." "Follow your heart," Kira said simply. "Trust what you feel." What Jake felt was overwhelming. Desire, yes, but also something deeper. Love, though it seemed impossible after such a short time. Connection that transcended the physical, though his body certainly wasn't ignoring the two beautiful women sitting so close to him. "I love you both," he said, the words surprising him with their certainty. "I know it's crazy, but I do." "It's not crazy," Vex whispered, leaning closer. "It's perfect." When Kira kissed him, it was soft and tentative at first, then deeper as Jake responded. Her lips tasted like starlight and possibility, and through Vex's empathic connection he could feel Kira's joy, her relief, her desire. Then Vex's lips were on his neck, gentle kisses that sent shivers through his body, and he could feel her emotions too. Tenderness, passion, love that made his heart race. When she kissed his lips, the empathic connection intensified, creating a feedback loop of sensation and emotion that left him breathless. "Is this real?" he murmured against Vex's lips. "Feel and see," Kira said, activating her memory projection abilities. Suddenly the room filled with images, not from the past but from the present, showing their connection from different perspectives. Jake saw himself through Kira's eyes, saw the wonder and love in his own expression. He saw himself through Vex's empathic senses, felt the way his emotions resonated with both women. The projections showed them touching, kissing, exploring each other with reverent gentleness. Jake watched Kira's luminescent skin respond to his touch, glowing brighter where he caressed her. He felt Vex's empathic abilities creating waves of shared pleasure that built between all three of them. "This is how we bond," Kira explained softly, her dress dissolving into points of light that settled around them like stars. Complete sharing, physical, emotional, mental. Vex's clothing seemed to melt away like morning mist, revealing skin marked with those beautiful golden patterns that pulsed with her heartbeat. "No barriers," she agreed. "No separation between where one ends and another begins." Jake let them undress him slowly, reverently, their touches sending cascades of sensation through the empathic link. When skin met skin, the connection became almost overwhelming. Three hearts beating in synchrony, three sets of desires building toward the same peak. They made love with a tenderness Jake had never experienced. Every touch was shared between all three of them through Vex's abilities, every emotion magnified and reflected through Kira's projections. Jake found himself touching Kira while feeling everything through Vex's empathic senses, kissing Vex while seeing himself through Kira's loving eyes. The physical pleasure was incredible, but it was transcended by the emotional connection, the feeling of being completely known, completely accepted, completely loved. When they reached their peak together, Jake felt their joy and release as if it were his own, because in that moment, it was. Afterward, they lay intertwined in the anti-gravity field, floating gently as their heartbeats slowly returned to normal. Jake felt tears on his cheeks, but they were tears of joy, of overwhelming gratitude. "I never knew it could be like this," he whispered. "This is how love is supposed to feel," Kira said, tracing patterns on his chest that her projections turned into real light. "Complete, perfect, unashamed." "I don't want this to end," Jake admitted. "When morning comes, when we have to leave this room?" "Who says it has to end?" Vex asked, her empathic touch conveying absolute certainty. "We've found each other, Jake. The three of us. Why would we let the universe tear that apart? But you both have your own lives, your own worlds. And now we have each other," Kira interrupted. "The research expedition I mentioned? It's not just academic anymore. I want to see Earth through your eyes, Jake. I want to understand the world that created someone I love, and I want to help you heal from the loneliness you've carried for so long," Vex added. "Both of you. We're empaths, but we've been lonely too, searching for connections that matter." As they drifted in their shared embrace, watching the nebula paint the walls with cosmic light, Jake Morrison realized that his life had just taken a turn he never could have imagined. Tomorrow would bring challenges, practical questions about how three beings from different worlds could build a life together. But tonight, floating in the arms of two extraordinary women who loved him as completely as he loved them, anything seemed possible. Jake woke to find himself alone in the room, though the lingering warmth in the anti-gravity field suggested Kira and Vex hadn't been gone long. For a moment, panic gripped him. Had it all been too good to be true? Had they simply vanished back to their own lives, leaving him with nothing but incredible memories? Then he saw the note. It was written in standard, but decorated with the same luminescent patterns that marked Kira's skin and the flowing script that resembled Vex's golden tattoos. His hands trembled slightly as he read, "Dearest Jake, we've gone to handle some practical matters, the kind of boring logistics that love requires in the real world. Don't panic. Don't assume we've left you. We meant every word, every touch, every promise. Meet us in Docking Bay 12 at noon. Trust us. Trust what we built together. All our love. Kira and Vex." Beneath the note was a small device he didn't recognize, crystalline and warm to the touch, pulsing gently with soft light. Jake showered and dressed quickly, his mind racing. What practical matters? What did they have planned? The device in his pocket seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat, somehow comforting rather than concerning. Docking Bay 12 was on the opposite side of the station from where his broken ship waited. When Jake arrived, he found Kira and Vex standing beside a sleek vessel he didn't recognize. Definitely not a standard cargo hauler, but not military either. Something designed for long-distance travel and comfort. "There you are," Vex said, her smile bright enough to power the station. "We were starting to worry you'd gotten lost." "What is all this?" Jake asked, gesturing to the ship. "Your new career opportunity," Kira said, practically bouncing with excitement. "It turns out there's a significant market for interspecies cultural exchange. Goods, services, knowledge, and someone who understands multiple cultures would be invaluable as a liaison." "I don't understand." Vex took his hands, and through the empathic connection, he felt her excitement and love, but also her nervousness. "We've been thinking all night about how to make this work. We want to be together, all three of us, but we each have responsibilities to our worlds. So we've found a way to honor those responsibilities while staying together," Kira continued. "This ship is equipped for extended voyages between the three systems. You'd be an independent contractor, facilitating trade and cultural exchange between Earth, Zilani, and Empathy. Jake stared at them, then at the ship. "You're serious." "Completely serious," Vex said. "The startup capital came from our combined resources. Consider it an investment in our future." "But what about my ship? My debts?" Kira pulled out a data pad and showed him a transaction record. "Your ship has been repaired and sold to a cargo company that needed parts. The proceeds covered your debts and station fees with enough left over for personal expenses." "You did all this while I was sleeping?" "We're very efficient when we're motivated," Vex said, grinning. "The question is, are you interested?" Jake looked at the ship, then at the two women who had somehow turned his worst night into the best thing that had ever happened to him. "You're asking me to completely change my life." "We're asking you to build a new life," Kira corrected. "With us." "The device we left you," Vex added. "It's a three-way communication link. As long as we each carry one, we'll always be connected, no matter how far apart we are. My empathic abilities, Kira's memory sharing, your human intuition. We'll never truly be separate." Jake pulled the device from his pocket, watching it pulse with warm light. As he held it, he could sense Kira and Vex's emotions, their hope, their love, their absolute certainty that this was right. "What if it doesn't work?" he asked. "What if the cultures are too different, or we can't make the business profitable, or—" "Then we'll try something else," Kira said simply. "Together." "Jake," Vex said softly, "what do you feel right now? Not what you think. What do you feel?" He closed his eyes and let himself really feel. Excitement. Hope. A sense of possibility he hadn't experienced in years. And underneath, it all love. For these two incredible beings who had seen him at his worst and chosen to build something beautiful with him anyway. "I feel like I'm about to start living for the first time in my life," he said. "Then let's start living," Kira said. 6 months later. Jake stood in the observation deck of their ship, the Harmony, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. Behind him, Kira was reviewing her research notes on human cuisine while Vex practiced projecting Earth-flavored emotional states to help her adapt to human empathic frequencies. The past 6 months had been everything they'd hoped and more challenging than they'd expected. Building a business from scratch while learning to live as a tri-bonded unit had tested them in ways none of them had anticipated. But it had also proven that what they'd found that night in the Cosmic Haven Lodge was real, lasting, and strong enough to weather any storm. Their trade routes now connected all three home systems, carrying everything from Zilani memory crystals to empathy healing techniques to Earth's apparently legendary pizza recipes. More importantly, they'd become ambassadors of a sort, proving that love and understanding could bridge any gap. "Nervous?" Vex asked, joining him at the window. "Excited," Jake replied, feeling her empathic abilities confirm his emotional state. "I want to show you both everything. The good, the bad, the weird. I want you to understand why Earth made me who I am, and why leaving it led me to who I was meant to become." Kira appeared on his other side, slipping her arm around his waist. "And I want to taste this legendary pizza in its natural habitat. For science, of course." "Of course," Jake laughed, pulling both women closer. "Just science." As Earth filled their view screen, blue and white and achingly beautiful, Jake Morrison reflected on the impossible series of events that had brought him here. One credit, one desperate gamble, one night that had changed everything. The communication device in his pocket pulsed gently, synchronized with the matching devices carried by the two most important people in his universe. No matter where their journeys took them, to the crystal cities of Zilani, the empathic gardens of empathy, or the pizza parlors of Earth, they would never truly be apart. Sometimes the best investments were the ones you made when you had nothing left to lose. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, those investments paid dividends you never could have imagined. "Welcome home," he whispered to his tri-bonded partners, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. "We are home," Vex replied, her empathic touch conveying absolute truth. "Wherever we're together, we're home." The harmony descended toward Earth's atmosphere, carrying 3 hearts that beat as one, 3 souls bound by love that transcended species, distance, and every rule Jake had ever been taught about how the universe was supposed to work. It was, he thought as they broke through the clouds toward the blue marble that had once been his whole world, going to be quite an adventure.